So, first, tell me a little bit of the backstory. What did we not see on the video?
I think actually the video tells a pretty good story. I mean, it was a pretty innocuous bill. The committee obviously at times could be contentious. The chairman is a volatile character by context. I mean, this is not his first run-in with these type of comments and such. There was an amendment that wasn't quite ready for prime time, in my opinion. I was basically making a point that we should probably give it more time. The maker of the amendment, who was literally about to leave for service to our country, I was like, hey, let's get this right while we can. I think the chairman was about to cut me off, and as I wanted to do with my hands, I kind of did the hey. And from there, the chairman kind of went to DEFCON 5, and at first, I didn't know exactly what was going on. I think that look of stunned kind of whoa was on my face. Then it kind of degenerates. Sorry, it kind of degenerates from there into some areas that were just appalling, frankly. I think at first I kind of nervously laughed because I didn't really know where this was going. And then the chairman kind of persists. And I thought the only thing appropriate to do was kind of try to bring it to an end and kind of bring some sanity. I think I said we're off the rails. And again, that's about as good an explanation as what happened yesterday.
Now, Representative Metcalfe says that you've touched him in a similar way a number of times, and he, according to him, he's asked you to stop several times.
And here's what's crazy about that. I'm sure I have. When he first said it, I was like, I don't even. It's so foreign to me to think like that. I'm sure I've a million times, as many chairmen will talk. And kind of hold a close. You're sitting there, you're trying to work something out. I would be lying if I said I recall a specific conversation with the chairman. But I'd be lying if I said he's never said, because these meetings tend to be very difficult. And as you saw yesterday with the volatile nature of it, the chairman can go off the rails in a moment's notice. And again, it goes into places you never would expect. I mean, not for nothing, from this to, a pretty nasty homophobic rant. That's not a place I expected that conversation to go. Again, I've tried many times to work with the chairman to try to bring some civility to a committee. The chairman is, by nature volatile. He has, engaged in kind of some anti-gay rhetoric and really nasty stuff in the past. So it's, the context, I think, is important to understand of how that played out. Again, I fully concede. I absolutely, I think the video shows, I kind of put my hand on him and say, hey, let's give the man a chance. Let's see if we can get 30 seconds here and get this resolved. And it's off to the races from there.
Are you considering, in light of this, talking with your hands less?
I don't want to laugh because there's obviously a serious conversation that needs to happen.
And right now with the Me Too and people coming out about harassment, there's that as well.
But again, I think conflating the two, it does a disservice to kind of, and frankly, clouds what played out there. We're in a type of business where you're working closely with people. You should have that type of relationship and try to build some rapport. Look, I don't know how you get from having a conversation about, hey, I'm with you, just don't touch, to, hey, I'm going to make a kind of a concerted, pretty hateful anti-gay rant. I fail to see how you get from one to the other.
Now, I've heard that you two were fairly friendly. You may not have been friends, but you at least were friendly prior to this. What was the relationship like before now?
I don't even know how I would characterize it. I really do believe, and I think as many of those Republican members, I don't agree with a lot of it. I'm a proud progressive Southeastern Pennsylvania Democrat. And the committee almost is sometimes structured for us not to see eye to eye, which is unfortunate. But to a man, some of my favorite members of the legislature are on the other side of the aisle on that committee. Again, I don't agree with them. They'll probably never vote for me on anything, but they're good, decent people. I do try. I've broken bread with Chairman Metcalfe. I've tried to consciously to work a relationship because there's been difficult bills and sometimes things that we had to come to agreement on. Real ID comes to mind. Where we had to work together and have gone to lunch and tried to build that rapport. Look, the chairman is a unique individual in this building. I don't think I'm alone in saying that. He can be difficult. His views are not mine, and I have severe differences with them. And when you make comments like you made yesterday, you drive that wedge even farther. That's not a conversation about don't touch. That's a conversation that really goes to a place that I don't think a lot of us are comfortable with and don't think is appropriate. And so that was really where I think we went off the rails.
Now, I asked Daryl Metcalfe the same question. Is this your coming out? So, in fairness, I will ask you the same question. Is this your coming out as a heterosexual or a homosexual?
I'm going to answer this the God's honest truth, which is I find those questions which have been given to, really, it puts us in, it's a weird, if I were gay, I'd be proud to be gay. If I'm straight, I'd be proud to be straight. For me, I happen to be straight. But that's a bizarre question to be asked in this day and age. And to get to that point, and to somehow conflate those two, get you into a really weird spot. It's not something, I would hope, I have 4 kids. I would hope that those children will grow up, my wife and I really tried to instill in them the idea that it don't matter. Like these are, we've moved past some of those divisions. Why that thing yesterday, that whole meltdown was so jarring, frankly. It was really odd to have a sexualized discussion about something that had nothing along those lines. And again, it got into kind of that hateful rant and the anti-gay stuff, which is just really not just unfortunate, but uncalled for.